All right, welcome back to the channel. So Gervonta Tank Davis and Tevin Farmer fight might actually be able to happen because Jojo Diaz missed weight and got stripped. Tank has an open path to being a unified 130-pound champion, and that fight should most definitely happen. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the 130-pound division. Division that is a very solid division. It has one big superstar in it, in Gervonta Tank Davis. Has another very, very skilled, dynamic fighter out of Mexico named Miguel Berchelt. Also, you have somebody named Tevin Farmer, who used to be the IBF champion, who lost to Jojo Diaz. Yes, lost to the same Jojo Diaz that was beat handily, quite easily, at 126 by the great Gary Russell Jr. But that is pretty much the landscape of 130. One big major guy and in Gervonta Tank Davis and a bunch of other guys that are holding titles. But there is most definitely a fight that needs to happen at 130 that could be very exciting for everybody. And that's the fight between Gervonta Tank Davis, the WBA champion, and the IBF champion, Tevin Farmer. Now, if you don't know why I'm saying that, you must have been underneath a bridge for a while, or like I was, just gone for a while, and not paying attention to what's actually going on in the sport of boxing, right? Before Tevin Farmer lost to Jojo Diaz, and when Gervonta Tank Davis was the IBF champion, Tevin Farmer is very, very famous exchange. I think that you could exchange between the two. I think that you can go back and see it on ES News with Ellie Sethback, where the two of these guys were at each other's throat trying to make the fight. Oh, excuse me. Well, Tevin Farmer was going at Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis was telling the man, go get a belt, go do something else. You ain't on my level, whatever. I think Leonard Ellerby, who's the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, was also involved in the conversation, trying to split it up, saying, hey, young, you're going to get your chance. You're a really good fighter, all that good stuff, right? So for months and months and months, we just kept hearing about how Tevin Farmer and Gervonta Davis need to fight each other. But it never took place. Gervonta Davis got stripped of the IBF belt because he missed weight in the fight against Francisco Fonseca. I think it's Francisco Fonseca that he lost the. Yeah, because that would have been the same fight as the one that took place along with Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Conor McGregor. I do believe that is the fight. The one that was on a pay-per-view, very, very big pay-per-view. That is what it is. And then Gervonta Davis missed weight. He winds up knocking out Francisco Fonseca, but he loses the belt, right? Then when that happened, a whole bunch of fights at 130 that people thought could get made could no longer get made, right? Vasily Lomachenko was at 130. Vasily Lomachenko moved up after that. Tevin Farmer at 130, but, Tank ain't got a belt. Now where we are is that after that took place, there were some fights between Tevin Farmer, and I can't remember the guy's name. I do believe he was a Japanese fighter. One where Tevin Farmer got robbed, and then he came back and he won the title easily. But then, by then, all of the kind of excitement around that fight had died. However, if you still look at it, you can definitely see why that fight should take place. First thing, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say that Tevin Farmer has no chance to beat Gervonta Davis. I understand why people would say that. I personally think that Gervonta Davis would win that fight. However, I do believe that Tevin Farmer is a much better fighter than maybe what he showed against the Jojo Diaz fight. And let me tell you briefly why I think that is. If you look at how often Tevin Farmer was fighting under that contract that he got with Matchroom, man, it seemed like he was fighting every other month, man. Like he was in training camp, it seemed, for like 2 straight years. And by the time he got to the Jojo Diaz, I think he might have been a little bit burnt out because he is a very good defensive fighter, and it just seemed like he really did not have his legs, he just didn't look like a special defensive fighter like he had in the past against Jojo Diaz. And Jojo Diaz is not that good a fighter, right? It's not like, Tevin Farmer, who is, I believe, an elite defensive talent, would just drop off like that against Jojo Diaz for no reason. I think it had something to do with fatigue, if not a little bit of injury, but not a lot of fighters were fighting at the pace that Tevin Farmer was fighting at, and I just think that it kind of caught up to him. But now, with what happened this weekend, and that is Jojo Diaz being stripped of the IBF belt for missing weight, which is funny, ain't it? Because he's got the same belt that Gervonta Davis lost for missing weight. And I do believe they missed it without even the next day weigh-in, where with the IBF you can only gain like 10 pounds. But regardless, I think that Tevin Farmer did not look as good against Jojo Diaz as he usually would have because of fatigue, overtraining. He was fighting too much. That's what I think. And also, Jojo Diaz came off of a fight with a much better fighter, right? I don't believe that Tevin Farmer has ever fought at the level that Jojo Diaz had fought when he fought Gary Russell Jr. And the fact that Gary Russell Jr., like what he learned in the fight with Gary Russell Jr., who I do believe is a better, more highly skilled fighter than Tevin Farmer, I believe that also might have helped his game plan, and in his loss that he had to Gary Russell, allowed him to adjust and do better against Tevin Farmer, while Tevin Farmer was fighting lower level competition and I think burning himself out. But at least that's what it looked like it to me. But I think that all that stuff should be put underneath, just put it in the background, because this is a rivalry fight between the city of Philadelphia and the city of Baltimore. I've said the same thing about rivalry fights between Gary Russell Jr., who's from D.C., and Gervonta Tank Davis, who's from Baltimore, right? Because if you look at the way all that, all the cities that go up, like after you get start going up east, after you get past Ohio, all of those, that whole thing all the way up to New York and then down a little bit, down towards the Carolinas, all of those are really, kind of closely connected communities. And there's a large American black population in there, so that the tickets are going to sell, man. But I'm not going to fool myself here. Not going to act as if I do not know that Gervonta Tank Davis is the prohibitive favorite in that fight. However, from a stylistic matchup, I do believe that Tevin Farmer can present problems to Gervonta Davis that Gervonta Davis has not seen yet. Because I've not seen Gervonta Davis in with somebody that really is an elite level defensive fighter. Somebody that is a cautious fighter, somebody that knows how to slip punches, somebody that he can give Gervonta Davis looks that he's not seen before. Because, as much as I like Gervonta Davis, and I definitely rep the dude, think he's one of the best fighters in boxing, deserves to be in the top 10 pound for pound. But, fighting those flat-footed fighters, even though they're very good flat-footed fighters, it's not the same thing as fighting somebody as elusive as a Gary Russell Jr. or a Tevin Farmer. So for me, if I can't get the Gervonta Davis fight against Gary Russell Jr., which is the one that I really want, hey, another really good one is Gervonta Davis versus Tevin Farmer out of Philadelphia, and we were looking for that before and asking for it before. So hey, man, why not? If Gervonta Davis right now he's a secondary champ at 135. And honestly, dude, I don't think he really belongs in that weight class. So since he's at 130, he might as well get to business and make it worth happening. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's my take on the situation. Please, in the comment section, let me know what yours are. And with that, I'm out. Peace.